Is there a Bible verse? A Bible verse on our Liberty Bell? Oh, Mr. Mercer, no, that would clearly be a violation of our Constitution, the separation of church and state. Well, my friends, it's so sad that some ministers actually believe that. Welcome to Mercer Moments in American History, a program dedicated to both current events that will impact all of us, but also to those many major moments in American history that for some reason have been erased, deleted from our curriculums, from our textbooks, from our classrooms, or our goal was to bring those back. Today's program asks the question, what is the Bible verse on our Liberty Bell? Or is there a Bible verse on our Liberty Bell? My name is Ken Mercer, the host of the Ken Mercer Show. I'm known as the Minister of Education because for 16 years I was blessed with a reputation of being a fighter for moms and dads, a champion for moms and dads in your right to see what's being taught in our classrooms. Every session, I'd love to give a shout out to one state, and today it's the state of Pennsylvania. I'm wearing a Pennsylvania shirt and Nittany Lions, and I humbly ask you to please pray for our young men and women in Pennsylvania of great values, those who love America. In today's environment, political environment, they are particularly being targeted and being attacked in our classrooms. Again, please pray for those young people. They need our encouragement. They need our prayers. Again, today's program asks, what is the Bible verse on the Liberty Bell? Well, let's begin. First, hopefully you know what happened on July 4th, 1776, the first time we declared ourselves as the United States of America. Very important fact, and there seems to be confusion about that. But that document, the Declaration of Independence, was huge. You remember the words, hopefully, the biggest name on there was John Hancock. There's still expression today, let me put my John Hancock on there. He signed right in the center, the biggest letters on there. But the fact was that document became a death warrant. Copies were distributed throughout the colonies to be read to all the people there, copies of the Declaration, and that was a death warrant. They know who signed it, like John Hancock. They know what town, what state, what business, what farm, who would they attack, who would they destroy, what property they would burn down, who would they arrest, and who could be killed for treason. Very brave thing what they did. But that day they also listed, delineated things that the British had done, King George III had done. They listed things that were in that declaration that they were concerned about and why they were declaring independence. And one of those things listed was called the quartering of British troops. Now, what does that mean? The British would come to your town and they needed food and supplies and a place to sleep, to live for their soldiers. And they had the right to confiscate whatever they could come to your farm, to your barn, to your business, to your store, and take all the supplies. These are for the king's soldiers. Just take them. And they could also require you to give up your own home, your farm, your business, even your own church to provide quarters for the British soldiers. I kid you not. That was actually happening. That was one of the things listed. Again, the Declaration delineates things that King George III and the British had done and why they were declaring their independence. So imagine that. The British could come to your town and take over your home and your church and take over all your supplies. And let's go back to the purpose of a bell in colonial times. Hopefully every small town, one of the first things they do would build a church. It had a bell. And no matter what that church was, denomination, that became the central meeting place, the place of communication for that town. If there was a wedding or a funeral, a church service, obviously the bell would ring. If there was a hurricane or bad weather coming, maybe a child lost in the forest, they'd ring the bell. In cases of war where they had reports of who was injured, who was wounded, who was killed. Or news of the day, maybe it's political items, maybe it's a political race, who won, who lost. That bell was a central form of communication for that church, for that town. Very important piece of communication. Now, in a war, as they were in the British, once they declared independence, what is the first thing the opposition wants to knock out? Your communications. But it was twofold for the British. They'd come to your town, quarter take over your homes and your church, take down your bell. No more communication to what's going on, right? That was your communication system. And then they melt your bell. Larger bells became cast for British cannons. Smaller became cast for British bullets. Imagine the irony if you were shot and killed in the battlefield by a bullet that came from a bell in your church. So obviously people were outraged, to the point where General George Washington even recommended, when it started to happen, the churches to remove your bell before the British come. And there are stories about churches who would bury their bells somewhere nearby so the British could not take it down. If they couldn't communicate anyhow, so at least say the bell and not use it for British weapons. So there's the background of what the bell meant in colonial times in every small town, and why we declared independence. But why this particular bell? I invite you, when you're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to visit the Liberty Bell. It's a major stop. I've checked on both bus tours, the big bus and hop on, hop off. It's a major stop. And it's a free tour. Well, free in terms of you as an American taxpayer have already paid for it. But it's very well done. It's high security. You'll be frisked your body down, your backpack, your purses. Unfortunately, in this time and age, there are people there who want to bring harm to the bell. Everybody's extremely helpful. And the exhibit is very well done about the bell beforehand, what it meant for communication device, what it meant during the war, what it meant afterwards, during the Christian abolitionists fighting to abolish slavery, how that bell, imagine that, became a symbol for what? For freedom. Now, here's the question though. Is there a Bible verse on the bell? Would that be a violation of separation of church and state if there was? It's no violation of church and state. There is a Bible verse on the bell, and let me share that with you. Let me share this why the founders chose this particular bell, why this bell was so important. The Bible verse is Leviticus 25:10. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10. Are you ready for this? Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. Again, Leviticus 25:10, proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. That's why they chose this particular bell, and that's why it's become so famous. So that's today's answer. Yes, there is a verse on there. It's 25:10. I'll leave you one last thing. One thing that impressed my wife and I were doing research on the Liberty Bell was how many foreigners came to Philadelphia and wanted to see the bell. I actually mistakenly walked into one group that was getting briefed, a Korean group, but I could hear languages throughout the world. People were there and they all knew what the Liberty Bell was. It's more than just America. It's a symbol throughout the world of liberty, of freedom. And the line for people of foreign countries who want a picture of themselves with that Liberty Bell is pretty impressive. So there you are, folks. Today's program. Is there a Bible verse on Liberty Bell? Yes. What is it? Leviticus 25:10. Therefore, proclaim liberty throughout the land and all the inhabitants thereof. This is Ken Mercer. Mercer Moments in American History. As always, I've asked you to please hit like and subscribe. Let our sponsors know if you enjoyed today's program. Please share it with your friends and family. Maybe your minister or pastors should know the same story. Today's shout out went to the students from Pennsylvania, both high school and college students, especially in today's political environment. They need our encouragement. They need our prayers. And finally, I'd like to end every program with a simple reminder that it is my personal belief that the strength of America, it's always been our faith and our values. And our faith and values together with our worship has made us so powerful, so invincible, so unconquerable. And I ask you to please never forget that in a place called America, in God we still trust. Right here in America, in God we still trust. Thank you and blessings.